Welcome back to another episode of UXpreneur. In today's episode, we're going to talk about reusable elements or components, as you might know them. There's a difference between the way Figma treats components and the way that Bubble treats components. So today we're going to look at the differences between both Figma and Bubble so that you could be a better UXpreneur. So grab that popcorn, let's dive in. All right, gang, welcome back to the studio. In today's video, we're going to be comparing Figma components to the Bubble reusable elements that you see here. Add a new reusable element. Now, in Figma, they're treated a little different. So you may notice that the components that you import from Figma don't directly translate to reusable elements in bubble.io. So today, let's solve that. In Figma, we all know that here is, let's say, a component. And in the last video, you saw where I actually drag and dropped this audio card into a repeating group in Bubble so that we could reuse it and it would maintain its clickability and deriving its file name from the correct place. Well, in Figma, that would look very similar. So here I've created a frame, just a custom frame, custom width and height. If we come over here, you'll notice that we have 75 by 320. That's not by mistake. 75 tall is the appropriate size for a thumb, and 320 wide is the appropriate width for an old iPhone 5 and that body shape. So here, I'll just make it the same, 320 by 75. And let's zoom in by clicking the number 2 on our keyboard. Let's see, 2? Yeah, just the number 2, and we zoom right in. So here we have a text file name, and we can make that bold. We can also center it vertically with this, which is something that when you select this, it doesn't have that middle selection. So you'll see there's a little bit of a difference there. Oh, here, center the text vertically. Huh? Kind does it, look at that. Okay, and so we can maybe make this full width and height in that area. I'm not buying it, Bubble. It doesn't look the way it does over here when I do the same thing. Okay, so that has a little bit of a better feel to it here in Figma. But here we have our file name. Now, by default, it's 12 points. Let's come over here to the Bubble editor, and let's take a look at the text size here. 16. All right. Now, I believe 16 is the basis for Google Chrome and Android, whereas Apple is 17 for their iOS device. So a little bit of a discrepancy there. What would 16 do for us here? Okay, there you go. And then on the right side here, we have the play button, and we're using Font Awesome. And so we can also do, I think it's called play-circle. Yeah. And then what happens if we do regular? We get the outline, and that's what we have here. Okay. So then we can also align this the same way, but I would be right aligned since I'm on the right side. And perhaps I'll even do center because I want this to be in the center of a click area. That should be about 75 square. 75 square. And I'm just going to make sure that's right aligned in there. And so here we have the text field. And I would traditionally bring that right over to this area. So if I turn my rulers on, Shift R, and select that, we get a boundary. I'm just going to drag over a ruler so I can see it. Select this, and I was right on the money anyway. Lucky me. And you know, I want to kind of bring this over, but then I have to indent this ever so slightly. And I don't really have that option here, do I? Let me see. I really don't. I don't have any indentation. And even if I did, the chances of it transporting over to Bubble are few and far between. So instead, I'll give it the same distance here that it does on the top and bottom. Okay. All right, and I'm going to shut my rulers off. I don't need that line anymore. And this looks really small in comparison. It's 16 though, and 16, so that is equal. Perhaps it should be that way over here as well. This is like 30 square. And I'm just going to grab a square real quick with R and drag it. And it's not 30 by 30. Okay, that would be something like this. And so if we centered that here and send it to the back and select it, you see that we have a lot to go. So I'm just going to hover over the font and get up as big as I can. It's about a 30 font size. Well, I kind of like that, so I'm going to leave it at that. Okay, so anyway, here we have black, and over here we have like gray and blue, and I made this bold over here. It makes me think that I should probably make this bold as well. It's Barlow by default on Bubble. In Figma, it's Enter. Each device has its own system font, which loads faster. For today, I kind of like Helvetica because that's like Massimo Vignelli's white, if there was a white for typography. And let's see if we have it here. No, I think they probably have Arial. Do they have Open Sans? Yeah, so I guess Open Sans is the, and so I would love to see if they have Enter. Okay, so they do have that. So I think I would leave it at Enter for now, since we have that on both cases. All right, so here we have a little bit more space on this on the left than we do over here. So I'm going to just move that over. See what's that? It's like a 23 from the side. So turn my rulers back on. Come over here to a 23. Select the frame. Come over to 23. Okay. Now I can just drag that over so it's equal on both sides. Okay, that gives us a large click area in case we wanted to send the clicking of the label, the file name, somewhere other than what the action is for the play button, so we don't have any overlapping links or anything. Okay, so here's my component here. Now, it's not yet a component. You can see it's a frame. So I have to right click it and I have to make it a component, right? Then we can come over here and we can begin to add properties like a variant and hit the plus and it will duplicate this down here. So for example, if we wanted this to be pause circle, right? And you know, some other file name or whatever. That's kind of how the components work in Figma. But over here, they work a little differently in Bubble. So let me show you that now. Let's go ahead and add a new reusable element. And you can name it just like we did. We could just name it component. And I don't need to clone it from anything, but we could create. And by default, they give you this like square, and you can actually click it and you can drag it to be anything you want. And that's how we know, because we did it in Figma. We can go 320 by 75, and there we have it. Okay? No, it doesn't let me drag it around. It stays locked in the top middle. All right, that's fine. It's describing it as a group versus a pop-up or a floating group. And it also has a type of content, okay, associated with it. So if you have a type of content like ours is audio recordings, I would select that. And we can put the text inside like we did. Come down to the styling, and you want to remove the body style that it gives us. We could put enter and keep it 16. We can make it bold, keep it left aligned, and we can go ahead and center the text vertically. And when we do the layout, everything's zeroed out for padding. We could call this, instead of text A, file name. Go back to appearance. Let's see, what else do we have in here? XYZ coordinates. So we know that ours was 23 from the left from Figma. Thanks, Figma. And let's go get our icon and place that in here. And we're going to say play circle. So here it is. Oh, got it in there. Now ours was black, so we can remove the standard color, and we can come up here to icon color, and we can just make it black like we had over in Figma. And then we could also do that same thing. It's like 3B. What if we made it black? Okay. And this area here, let's see what happens. When I resize it, I think it might, let's do that. Let's do the height. If I make it 75, it increases the size of that by 75. Yeah. So you can't do the same thing here. Instead, we know that that was actually 30 by 30. And we just have to kind of position it in alignment here. So I'm going to do that, arrange, and center. I'm going to align vertical centers. There we go. And I'm going to subtract 320 from 23. And so that gives us 200 and, or does it? Let's see. It actually gives us 197. No, that doesn't make any sense. What's my math here? I wanted it to, oh, because I have to compensate. So we have to do 23 plus 30, which is 53. So 320 minus 53. So that's 267. So let me see if I can get that right. Ah, here we go. All right, so that's about the same styling. And then we can come to appearance and we can get the dynamic data, the parent group's audio recordings file name. Boom, there we have it. And for this one, we're going to actually give it a on click. So we'd have like a start edit workflow. And when the element is clicked, we're going to actually run the plugin, and we would paste our audio dot play item in here, so that way it would play the actual thing. And in particular, that's a dicey one because we had to go get that from another developer. So we need also var variable my audio, and we have to get the URL from the parent group's audio recordings. Files URL. Bingo. And then we can close that. All right. And so let's see. where'd our play go? And then we could do my audio.play. All right. So I went and got the audio recording file URL, and so now we can play it when somebody clicks that play button. That's really all we have to do here. I could go and check my work on this audio recording just to see that workflow. Grab it. Equals, now I forgot some parts of it. New audio to play. Yeah. Everything else looks good though. It's not letting me select everything, but we could at least fix that. A little bit of a tangent while we're here. Paste that in. Okay, the audio equals new audio. And now I can just say audio down here instead of my audio. All right. Okay, so that's a little bit of a hack, low code, if you will, so we can get that to work. But now we have a component here, and look, it's not the most glamorous thing because all we have is a file name and a play button. But we have to keep these things really, minimal. We have to keep these things minimal. It's a minimum viable product. We're only trying to learn. We're not trying to build and design a fully robust mainstream product. So how do we get another variable here in that case? Well, here we'd have to go to conditions, all right? And we can define a condition. So something like when this icon is, we can even create a new custom state. Let's see, what else can we do here? Something like is pressed. Then we could change the icon to something else like pause. Okay, and now when we preview this somewhere, we could click it and see it pressed. So let's try to do that. Right now this component is reusable, but it doesn't live on any pages. So I'm just going to create a new page real quick for an example and create it. And then I'm going to just come down here and you'll see that our reusable element is here, component, and we can drag that over. Just like in Figma, if we had another page and we want to go to assets, grab our component and drag it over onto some other, screen or whatever that may be the size of an iPhone, right? Okay, you see white on white kind of lose that border. We might be having some issue there with that as well here. So in any case, we have a page and we've drug our component over. So now we can go preview. You can see we don't have a file name because we sourced it from somewhere else dynamically, but we do have our icon. And when we press it, it turns to pause. When we let go, it goes back. So that means we would actually have to get the repeating group over here, and we'd actually have to put our component in the repeating group. The repeating group is not big enough to accept that. Here we go. And I'm going to send that to the back so we can grab this other one. And now we should be able to drop it in and it populates for each one. Maybe we can narrow this a little bit. Yeah, there we go. So it's kind of centered in there. And this component, we'd have to get the audio recordings from do a search for the audio recordings and created by the current user. Bingo, close. Okay, let's just see if that works. Refresh. We're still not getting our name, our file names. Interesting. Okay, So that means we have something awry. Our recordings. Let me select the component. Data source is missing. So it needs to get the current cell's audio recordings. And now let's try again. Aha! File 1. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Yay, we did it. All right, so that's our component, and we can put it on any page that we wanted to in a repeating group. It's almost as if this repeating group is now a component itself too. And so if we take a look at Atomic Design by Brad Frost, you can see that at the atomic level, we have things like the icon, our play button, our pause button, our file name. And then we moved it over into a molecule, which is the component that we did today. It's like a molecule. Let's go back to, for example, like this is a molecule because we've added a card and a name and an icon. Okay, so if we come back over to our reusable group, we know that this is a molecule. And then we created an organism when, indeed, we began to, for example, put that molecule on this frame. Or in the case of Bubble, we put this molecule on our page called example into the repeating group. And now this whole thing has become a molecule. And on the page, it's actually part of a, well, you could say an organism, but the page is usually a template. But it is sort of an organism inside of these repeating group. This is an organism now. That's a molecule. These are atoms. All right, I think you understand it. But that's how Bubble and Figma are different. Bubble has dynamic data. Figma doesn't. It's all static. You have to create everything manually. And they behave a little differently. Figma is more conducive to designing, and it provides a great reference for us when we were creating the bubble. You know, the rulers and everything. So we were able to actually reference the typography and the alignment and everything, which makes our Bubble app look a lot better. And we can make variants based off of single items in Bubble, whereas Figma relies on components. But we moved through the stages of Atomic Design today so that you guys can use components and reusable elements in Figma and Bubble. I hope you enjoyed that video on the difference between Figma and Bubble components so that you could build a reusable element in Bubble for your web app and become a UXpreneur. If you like this video, click the like button. If you loved it, subscribe. It keeps the channel alive. And to be notified about the next video, click the bell notification, and I'll see you there. Bye-bye.